Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, the number one network in the United States, and also Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe. And I want to just say today is a beautiful New Year. Happy New Year to everybody who follows the world of sports. Today is actually January the 2nd, 2017, and Big C had so many good things happening over the last year. I still want to thank all of our followers from Latin America. So bienvenidos to you, as well as our great people over across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys from Canada. Thank you so much for following Charlton and Big C Sports. And of course, there's no one better than the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charles, it seems like it was only last year that I talked to you last.
Yeah, I think it was last year.
Things are wonderful. We got through the first round of the bowl championship series. All the playoff teams are set in the NFL, NHL. Have the mid-winter classic. Playing outside in the weather.
Yeah.
In St. Louis, and just an exciting time. You got New Year's Day, but they're not New Year's Day anymore because it was on Sunday. But the post-New Year's Day bowl games going on today, the Big Four, and so just an exciting time still in athletics.
Oh yeah, and there's so many things that have happened in this world of sports, and I just want to say, of all the things that I appreciate about this business is being able to talk about sports with you, Big C. Learn so much just going back and forth, and you talk about history like nobody else in the business. And again, you still do this without a teleprompter, without a producer in your ear. So I really appreciate just having that knowledge that you sometimes can only learn by going through things. And speaking of going through things, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Now, Big C, this is a new year. I don't know if you're going to start out with a new Escalade or at least watch the one you have. What's it going to be, Big C? Which one is it, Big C?
Well, I'll tell you this, Charlton. Won't anybody be able to recognize the gun more? Falling out of the sky here.
Oh, yeah.
They have to go out and get off the boat just to be able to get around. We're talking 2 to 3 inches of rain tonight. He gets some fabulous.
Yeah, I can tell you got some rainstorms happening down there, Big C, and sometimes it may affect, our sound too, but hopefully we'll have good communications today. And again, I was just saying about that Escalade, maybe you will watch it, but you don't have to, because I think Mother Nature got tired of seeing such a dirty car, and she decided to watch it for you, Big C. Go right ahead, C. You still there, Big C?
I think she might think I'm a little embarrassment to the couch. So she's out there cleaning me up a little bit. But no, the thing about it, with all that rain, you know what comes from that mountain?
What's that?
Mud puddles.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll be able to find
That's always good to know. Just getting right back into the world of college football. Had a great game with Michigan and also Florida State. That game went right down to the wire. So congratulations to Florida State for getting that done. And also for all the world of college football, I think we're finding out what it would be like by having just a few good games, Big C, as opposed to 41 bowl games. We started playing bowl games last year. We're still playing them. And no game was more important, I think, on the college landscape than Alabama and Washington. Your thoughts on that game and then some of the aftermath after that game, Big C? Go right ahead, C.
That game is a lot of time for Washington, but Alabama finished in a hurry and changed the course of the game. The defense stepped up, held Washington in check the rest of the game. I don't think Washington was that used to seeing that much athleticism all year long, Charlton, in every position.
Yeah.
Especially in the secondary. I mean, they challenged everything that Browning threw at them down the field and kept Washington's offense in check. But, you have to take your hat off Alabama. They came out and they took the ball at them. But the running game, which has always been dominant, and they just went up and down the field. Washington did not have an answer for the backs of Alabama. They utilized 3 backs in that game, Charlton. So they just basically wore down the Huskies' defense.
Well, it looks like And when it first began, Washington had a little bit of success throwing the football. Browning, in fact, they had a 7-0 lead. But it takes Nick Saban not a long time to figure out what your weakness is. And I think they found out if they forced the Huskies into passing the ball by stopping the run, he would have a hard time going up against that big physical defensive line that Alabama's known for, Big C. Now, Washington does have a good defense. I know some people were saying that Alabama did not have the best offensive game, but that's a defense that had 19 takeaways on the year, and actually they had a pretty decent scheme against Alabama. And obviously Jake Browning threw a pick six, and that did not help matters either right before halftime. But I think overall, you're right, the line play of Alabama is as good as anyone, not just this year, but anyone we've seen probably ever, Big C. Would that make any sense?
It actually does, Charlton. They're going to challenge you to throw the ball. That's what they want you to do. They have no fear of any team running against them. You think of some of the dominant running backs in the SEC, Charlton, which has always been known as a power run conference, even though they've passed a lot more in the past couple of years. But this is a conference that's produced great backs. One of the best backs in the country in Fournette.
Yeah.
Down at LSU, and every year they faced him, they held him in check. And across the table, Charlton, Washington really was no different. When you look at it, everyone knows that the West Coast is always pass happy. It used to be a run conference, but it's gone a lot to the pass in the last decade when you look at the quarterbacks that conference has produced, Charlton. But Alabama, with that defensive line, especially their secondary, it's hard to find a weakness. And when you look at Kirkpatrick, the defensive back number 29, I mean, he's as good a defensive back as there is in the country.
Oh, yeah.
If he declares for the draft, he'll be the first defensive back taken. I mean, he reminds me so much of the kid in Seattle that played at Texas, Thomas. Thomas.
Yeah.
That same type of player, very vicious player, Charlton, and very savvy, knowledgeable, so intelligent out on the field that, he's a coach amongst himself. And that's what Nick Saban does, is coaches the secondary. But when you look at that game, Charlton, and after that game, the quarterback didn't pass for 100 yards for Alabama.
Yeah.
He didn't have 100 yards passing. And people say, after the game, that, it was time for Lane Kiffin to move on to his new coaching found job. I think the reason why Nick Saban held out and kept Kiffin around for one more game is that Sarkisian most likely would have had some emotional involvement with that game.
Yeah.
Because there's players on the Washington staff roster that he recruited.
Oh, yeah.
Juniors and seniors. He recruited those players. And so would he been able to go out there and emotionally go through the repertoire that he had to do to coach to those players, with those players that had a feeling for what he was going to call? So I think it was more so that, he didn't want, Sarkisian coaching against his former players because it could have been mixed emotions.
Yeah.
And so he let, Kiffin stay on for one more game prior to letting him go. So, it was a fire needle to look at. But he did not want Sarkisian to coach the game, regardless of what the national media is going to say. He didn't think that Sarkisian could pull it off against Washington.
Well, Big C, it's ironic that you have a great thing. Alabama's had probably the best defensive team over the last decade. And whether it's Nick Saban or not, their players they're at a different level. And even just watching how it's almost like the days of when Mike Tyson was a boxer, and you knew if he gets you in the first 3 rounds, he was going to knock you out. If it went past 3 rounds, then you probably had a chance of beating Mike Tyson. And that's what it seemed like watching Alabama's defense. With this team, you got to get them early, because if you don't, you're probably not going to score. And just going back to the fact that the Huskies scored in the first quarter, kind of midway through the first quarter, and after that, they did not sniff the red zone in that ball game. And that's a team that won the Pac-12 championship but only had 1 loss on the season. So whether it's Lane Kiffin or Sarkisian on offense, their defense won that game for them. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at the touchdown that Washington scored offensively, Alabama equaled that with their defense, with the big 6 return in the first half.
Yeah.
So basically, it was a neutral game at that point. It was about which offense was going to do anything. And Scarborough, the big number 9 running back,
he's amazing.
Alabama, he was a man-child out there. And, you look at this kid, and he's not even the starter. He reminds so many people of Derrick Henry, the Heisman Trophy winner from last year that Alabama had.
Yeah.
As far as running the ball. But he also set a record in that bowl game for rushing yards. So when you think about the wealth of talent that Alabama has, and it comes at you from every different direction, they go 8 deep in their defensive line. That's what people don't understand. So they never get tired.
Yeah.
Their linebacking core is equal to any linebacking core in college football.
Yeah.
But their secondary is just totally outstanding, Charleston. You see guys making plays all over the field. They're unselfish.
Yeah.
They go out, they protect each other, they can play man, they can play zones. And they didn't really blitz watch it. They got it done with a 4-man pass rush. So it lets you know how dominant those front 8 guys that they are in that rotation.
Yeah.
That they have at the University of Alabama.
Well, Big C, another thing that people are talking about, maybe Alabama's going to struggle because Lane Kiffin is going to Florida International University. Well, if you look at Alabama's scoring offense, they were only ranked 13th in the country. They averaged 40.5 points a game. Their total offense was only 26th in the country. That's 471.3 yards a game. Their rushing offense, they were only 13th in the country at 245. Their passing offense was number 70th in the country at 226 per game. That's not impressive. It's when you turn the score to what Nick Saban does on the defensive side of the ball. That's where Alabama is number 1 in the country. Their scoring defense, 11.5 points a game. That's number 1 in the country. They held Washington to 7. Their total defense gives up 247.8 yards a game. That's number 1 in the country. And their rush defense only gives up 63.4 yards per game. That's number 1 in the country. And their defensive side is still there. So I know Lane Kiffin did a lot to get the national media thinking that he's the reason for their success. But just look at where they're number 1, and that's still at the helm of Nick Saban, Big C.
Charleston, you can put those stats as far as offense and defense, as far as points scored.
Yeah.
It's the margin of victory. And your offense, when it doesn't make mistakes, that's the key. If you're not turning the ball over, you look at the turnover plus minus that their defense has. That means that the guys on offense are very well coached as far as holding on to the football. So you look at that. Everybody knows that Saban has always put together fantastic defenses, Charleston. It's always been there. But you got to look at the maturation of the offense to bring a freshman quarterback in and have the best season that you've ever had as a head coach.
Yeah.
A lot of that goes to the offensive coordinator and the personnel grouping that he puts together, Charleston. When you think about the receiving core of Alabama, you know, you have 3 guys that on any other team in the country, if they played on USC or even Clemson, they would all be 1,000-yard receivers. But they play within the Alabama system, and so no player is bigger than the system in Alabama. When you think about what Hurd did as a freshman quarterback, passing for over 3,000 yards, rushing for over 1,000 yards, Charleston, a multi-dimensional offense.
Yeah.
That's what you do to keep the opposing defense off balance, and you have ball control. So if you have ball control, you're going to limit the opportunities of your opponent.
Yeah.
That's the key factor in college football. Limiting the opportunities of your opponent, Charles.
So do you think, let me just get your assessment, Big C. I know Bob Feinbaum, he covers the Alabama Crimson Tide as well as anybody, and he only focuses on Alabama. I know you cover football and basketball, college and pro, and boxing, Hollywood, everything else, so your plate's a little bit more full. But do you think in the final assessment of Alabama, before we touch on Clemson, how do you think this is going to affect their play in the national championship game, Big C?
You know, this will be a reverse of what you had last year in the national championship game, Charles. I look at what Alabama did last year. They didn't dominate the national championship game.
No.
Clemson had some missed opportunities. I think that Deshaun Watson is a lot more mature quarterback this year. And when you're going into a game and you can do what Clemson can do, you know, I got to like Clemson's chances this year a little better than what they were last year.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, Big C. I also want to say that this segment is sponsored by the California Lottery. What can a buck do for you? Well, Big C, it didn't do anything for us last year but take our money. But I'm telling you, this year's the year that Charlton and Big C Sports will hit that lotto, Big C. Your thoughts on what we're going to do with the lotto? I know you're going to buy a lot more moonshine, Big C.
Well, Charlton, we're going to go out and help some of those people that are sorely needing help, Charlton. We're going to give out to some charities. We're going to expend some of that money around the country where it's really needed to help organizations, Charlton, with girls and boys clubs, things of that nature, youth organizations. That's where America's needed to be started from the ground up. We can talk about adding jobs in America. America's not going to lose technology. So the falsehoods that the president-elect is selling on people, you know, it's not going to come to fruition. You're not going to fire machines to hire people. And matter of fact, he's not going to bring any of the 26 companies that he has in foreign countries to America to employ Americans to make America strong. We won't follow his lead. We'll do our own.
Well, ironically, now that they had information that Russia was involved in hacking Americans' political system, irrespective of who won, that's a fact according to the CIA. And now Donald Trump, that's on Twitter every day, says he does not trust computers. That's kind of an oxymoron. The man's on computers all the time. Without computers, would airplanes fly? Would our Secret Service work? Would national security work? Here's a guy that doesn't trust computers that's going to be holding the coast to the nuclear weapons. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Johnson, how would he check on his stocks? How would he check on the progression of his companies? How would he have his world dealings if he didn't deal with computers? Yes, you talk on the phone, but you're also, texting, tweeting. Isn't tweeting a computer?
I thought it was. I thought it was. I thought it was, yeah.
This just goes with the fact that every time he opens his mouth, there's a lie to come out of one of those.
That's so funny. And now, if you look at what's happening for the national championship, you look at the University of Clemson, and I know Dabo Swinney, he has built one of the better programs kind of under the radar, because even though Clemson has dominated the ACC over the last 3 years, you still think that Florida State nationally is the best program in that conference. But look at what they've done. They took an Ohio State team that had not been shut out, I think it's since 1990. I think they were shut out in a bowl game the last time, the 1920 Rose Bowl. They haven't been shut out. I mean, we weren't even born by the time they were shut out Big C in a bowl game. How did Clemson dominate that game so easily? It maybe is not easily by the score, but they did dominate that game. And how did Urban Meyer look like a rookie coach, Big C?
Well, it's not that, Charlton. If you go throughout the regular college football season, where everybody talked about the Big Ten was the best conference in the country, because at one point you had 4 teams ranked in the top 10, Charlton, in the Big Ten. And you look at those teams, Charlton, 2 of them didn't even win the conference championship. And they were talking about 2 of the best teams in the country. And neither one of them got to play for the conference championship.
Yeah.
So when you look at Ohio State's last game against Michigan, they weren't a dominant offensive team in that game, Charlton. It took them basically 3 quarters to get on track.
Yeah.
Before they really did anything offensively. And that goes with Michigan's loss to Florida State also in the bowl game. But when you look at what Clemson has athletically, and we talked about Dalvin, the running back, how dominant he was. Williams, the wide receiver. He's as good as any wide receiver in the country, but Deshaun Watson is the X factor. And you had no answer for him, Charlton. He is as potent running and throwing the football as any individual around the country.
Yeah.
People said he had a down year, and the question mark, people said, well, he may not even be a first-round draft pick. Show me one of those first-round draft picks at quarterback last year in the NFL that has had a better college career or any college season than what Deshaun Watson has had, Charlton.
Yeah.
So this kid is a complete package. But the speed on Clemson's defense is something that Ohio State had not seen all year. That was the big difference in that game. They had an answer for every move that Ohio State had.
Yeah.
And that was the difference. There's a lot more speed in that ACC than what people give it credit for. Everybody wants to talk about the other conferences, but you don't get to be a slouch, and win as many games in Deshaun Watson's career as he's won. He's only had 3 losses.
Oh, yeah.
When you think about it, Jonathan, he's had a loss every year he's been in college. He had one as a sophomore, he's had one as a junior, and he's had one as a senior. So if it goes by par, he's not going to lose another game. And so when he faces Alabama, he's seen the best that Alabama can produce. He saw that last year. Alabama is no different team this year than what they were last year facing Deshaun Watson.
Well,
it's just he's a better player and understands more.
Well, Big C, one of the reasons that Clemson has been so good this year is they have Carlos Watkins who can force. He forced Ohio State to abandon their run game. They were trying to throw. Ohio State had a couple of opportunities, but just over time, you kept seeing Clemson's defense put a lot of pressure in the backfield against Ohio State. And J.T. Barrett's an excellent player, but I really thought they were more physical. They reminded me of watching how Ohio State beat up on Oregon, in the national championship game just 2 seasons ago. They were equally matched athletically, but when it comes to weightlifting and just being able to push someone off the line of scrimmage, I'm really impressed with the Clemson defensive line going into this game against Alabama. You look at Clemson, their numbers are not as impressive as Alabama. Their rush defense is not as strong. They're only 22nd in the country. They give up 125 yards a game. Their passing defense is 19th in the country. They give up 188 a game. And I don't even look at, when you look at their scoring offense, even though Watson's is really good, they're only 14th in the country, averaging 40 points a game. But when you look at their total offense, they're still only 13th at 500 a game. It's amazing you could be 500 a game, and that's only 13th in the country. What does Nick Saban see that poses a weakness for Clemson if they have any, Big C?
I'm not recognizing the weaknesses. The biggest factor in that game, Charlton, and a lot of people had overlooked, is that Ohio State is an AstroTurf team, okay?
Yeah.
Clemson's a grass team. They played on grass. They were in Clemson's natural habitat.
Yeah.
It was a foreign situation for Ohio State. They had to make the adjustment to playing on grass, where the footing is not always as sure. We saw several players slip in that game.
Yeah.
This is a game that, that Nick Saban doesn't have the answer for, Charlton, when it comes down to that. Deshaun Watson has seen the best that Nick Saban can bring. The defensive personnel is pretty much the same as it was last year.
Yeah.
With Alabama. They may have 3 or 4 new players, but it's basically the same scheme that they're going to run. The biggest challenge for Alabama is going to be able to pick up a passing game.
Yeah.
It's hard to change offensive coordinators, okay, for one critical game, because you have to have a rhythm of the players. Yes, Sarkisian's been around all year, but it's been Kiffin calling the plays. He may have been a co-player caller, Charlton, but to have a rhythm and a feel for the players. Now, Sarkisian's been up in the box. Kiffin's been on the sideline.
Yeah.
So he's had his finger on the pulse. That, to me, is the biggest difference, is that you're there personally communicating, having insight with the players. And now that's going to change. What is going to be the mindset of Hurd dealing with, Sarkisian?
Yeah.
And has Sarkisian gotten rid of all his demons? Has he exercised all his demons and lost his job?
Wow.
So, that's a factor. People talk about getting your life together. Now, if he was a player, he would never got another opportunity to play.
Yeah.
Having the addictions that he's had. But, you got that privilege of being what he is. So people constantly give you jobs and opportunities. It was a weakness he had in his life. They will say a weakness instead of a dependency.
Yeah.
But, I don't see that relationship with he and Hurd that Kiffin had developed with Hurd, or even the rest of the offense, Charlton.
Well, Big C, I know, unlike a lot of other games in the past, good looking at last year, a lot of the bowl games, I just really haven't found the desire to watch them as much. But when you get into maybe the top tier schools, these final 4 or 5 bowl games, really interested in seeing them. USC was leading Penn State at halftime. I think it was 27-20 down in the Rose Bowl. That's a great game going on because both teams seem to be evenly matched, and the Rose Bowl is packed. Nearly 100,000 fans watching that game, Big C. That's what makes it exciting. Also seeing Alabama and Washington play in front of a packed house down in Georgia. In fact, that new stadium, it looks like it dwarfs the Georgia Dome. I thought was a pretty good sized stadium, almost 80,000. Well, the new stadium's a lot bigger, Big C. You were down there. Your thoughts on how that's coming along, Big C?
Well, Charlton, they played the last college game in the Peach Bowl, Alabama, Washington. They also played the last regular season NFL game with the Saints and Falcons on Sunday. That stadium is due to open, Charlton, for the college football kickoff classic in 2017. But in actuality, they seat about the same number of seats. The dimensions of the stadium are just spectacular with the way the roof is set to open and everything. But really, it was the luxury boxes that was the biggest attention. I believe they're gaining another 56 luxury boxes in the stadium. And that's where owners make their revenue. Because, you're selling off those luxury boxes and you still have to buy the tickets. So that's the biggest thing when you look around stadiums. If you remember when the Raiders went back to the Coliseum in Oakland, the big deal was to build those luxury suites there in the Coliseum. And, there was always a cry in Los Angeles that they've never had the luxury suites. And when you look at all the new stadiums that have been built in the last decade around the country, it's about the luxury suites. When you look at Texas Stadium in Dallas, the new stadium, Reliance Stadium down in Houston, it's all about about the luxury suites, Charles, because that's where the owners generate the most revenue.
Well,
so, this is what's going to be the thing of the future.
Well, speaking of the thing of the future, I just want to say that this segment is sponsored by United Labor Guaranteed $100,000 life insurance with no medical questions. Also, we're endorsed by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. And we work with all of the unions in the country under the AFL-CIO. And we're looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers because we simply want to put people back to work. Big C, we're going to the NFL. What a great season for NFL football. It goes all the way down to the final game of the regular season to decide who would win the AFC West. And as you predicted, Big C, last week, look at the Oakland Raiders. Once they lost Carr to a broken leg, they really had some issues just trying to win games, Big C. And not only, they won the game when Carr broke his leg against Indianapolis, but against Denver yesterday, they looked pretty sad. It's like everything fell apart for the Raiders. The Broncos 24, and they're not going to the playoffs, but the Raiders 6 points, and they're going to the playoffs. Just your thoughts on that game played in front of 76,000 in Denver. Your thoughts, Big C.
With two big losses in that game, Charlton, the Raiders lose the regular season finale, and Denver loses their head coach to retirement.
Oh, yeah.
But, when you look at the Raiders, LeBron, was lackluster prior to getting injured. Then you bring in Cook, who was this highly touted quarterback out of Michigan State that people were talking about a potential first-round pick.
Wow.
And we saw the lack of productivity he had. The thing is, Charlton, when you bring in a quarterback late in the season who hasn't had any repetitions against a defense that has played full speed all season long, this is what you get, a guy who is 2 steps behind everybody else.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have the recognition. He doesn't have the live game recognition. Sitting in a film room, running a tape back and forth doesn't do it for you. When you got a guy 300 pounds leaning on your chest,
oh yeah,
and you haven't had that all year long, it's a little different sense of urgency. The Raiders right now just have nothing offensively. You know the struggles that they've had with their run game.
Yeah.
And so Denver could stack the box and, hey, we're not worried about you running the ball. We're going to come after you. And that's what they did because we don't feel that your quarterbacks have the timing. We can blitz you. We can do whatever we want. And that's what happened in that scenario, Charlton. And you saw the ill results of it. The Raiders have no offense. They're basically going to be one and done in the playoffs.
I think the only thing that helps them is they're playing Houston, and Houston's just as bad. But here the Raiders, they had 2 rushing first downs, 2 out of 4 quarters, 2 rushing first downs, Big C. And offensively, they had 221 total net yards. And that's not going to get it done in the playoffs. It's a shame to see how your backup players are so bad that they don't even look like they can make an NFL team, let alone start for one, Big C. So congratulations to Denver for not throwing in the towel and getting a win to close out their season. Again, the teams that played for the Super Bowl last year, the Carolina Panthers and Denver Broncos, did not make the playoffs this year, Big C. Another game in the NFL, the Bengals 27, the Ravens 10. That was played in front of 54,000 fans in Cincinnati. Big C, your thoughts on that game?
Well, this was a game that, people were talking about could be the last game for Marvin Lewis. He's a guy who's been in Cincinnati 14, 15 years now, Charlton. Made the playoffs 7 consecutive years. He missed the playoffs 1 year, and everybody's calling for his head, Charlton. Why? Because you have one losing season, and we got coaches who have consistent losing seasons. Jeff Fisher stayed around forever as a losing coach. But Marvin Lewis, people forget he lost his receiving core, okay?
Yeah.
Didn't start the season. He was out the first 4 games, so the first 4 games, he had a receiver from last year. You're not start. You're gone. So that's all.
Yeah. And basically, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. We'll try to get your mic worked out. But I know I see what you're saying. Give the man a chance to coach. And sometimes you just wear out your welcome because 10 years, any place might be too long. But your thoughts on, I think Lewis at least will get a chance to stay there. But if not, I think he'll find greener pastures because everybody needs a little bit. Sometimes you need a new car after 10 years. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the biggest cry is that Marvin Lewis made the playoffs 7 years in a row and he hasn't won a game. The longest streak of any coach to not win a game with consecutive appearances in the playoffs. But to be able to get there, to have that consistency, it's almost like the Buffalo Bills when you went to 4 straight Super Bowls. You didn't win one. Nobody talks about firing the coach because he was losing Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And look around the NFL. Where do you find quality head coaches, Charlton? Where? I mean, we see coaches live 4 and 5 years in organizations and never have a winning record. This guy was winning every year. He's Cincinnati's all-time winningest coach. And when you think about that speaks about You know, Sam Weiss didn't do that. You know, when he was Coach Paul Brown, you know, when he formed the organization, he didn't do that. So, you know, this is a team, Charlton, that Marvin Lewis has worked wonders for. He turned that organization around. When they hired him, they only had 2 wins the previous season.
Yeah.
So he came in and turned that organization around, made a consistent winner out of it, and people are not happy being winners. But, you know, when you think about it, it's the mainstream media that's not happy having an African-American coach as a consistent winner because those are the only ones we hear crying about it.
Well, I hear that all the time, Big C. I think if anyone deserves to keep a job, is Lewis. They didn't throw in the towel, and it seems to always be because they have some injuries going on there. But overall, if you look at how they performed yesterday, they still had a great game. They had over 25 first downs, Big C, and they had nothing to play for, but they still moved the ball effectively. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers 17-16 over the Carolina Panthers. 2 of the better young quarterbacks in the game, Winston and also last year's MVP in Cam Newton. But you got to give Tampa Bay credit for winning that game. They had a chance in the end for Carolina, but the defense stepped up and won that game for Tampa. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, you know, that's part of the maturation of Jameis Winston and the Tampa Bay organization. You know, you drafted him number 1 3 years ago to prove a point that you had a franchise quarterback, and he's slowly been developed. He has an outstanding receiving core. You know, they've had some inconsistency in their running game, but Tampa is like the Tampa under Tony Dungy. They're building this team through defense, Charlie.
Yeah.
They're out there playing defense with everybody, and there's some stalwarts on that side of the ball, but, you know, you have a quarterback that can lead you for the next decade, and Jameis proving that point. They got knocked out of the playoffs 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They did not get knocked out of the season. They came out and stood strong and played hard their last game of the season and came up with a victory.
Yeah, and you know, that's part of it, Big C. You talk about it all the time. You just got to keep playing, and, you know, that's what makes the NFL great because you don't get voted into anything. You got to play it on the field, and that's what I'm really impressed with seeing these teams play. Another big game that had a lot of an impact yesterday, the New York Giants 19, the Washington Redskins 10, and if you look at that game, it's a game that Washington had to win to get into the playoffs, Big C, but credit New York again, coming up with the win on the road, 19-10. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, you know, the Giants, Charlton, are a dangerous team when you get into the playoffs, especially when they're a wild card team. And you look at Washington, you know, so they had such high praise from last year after in games, and everybody expecting them to be a better team.
Yeah.
President back, they gave him a $20 million franchise tenure, you know, for a 1-year deal, and he played up on that. He had 5,000. But, you know, a lot of times, you know, he just like Drew Brees. 5,000 yards doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's going to be at home watching, you know, like the rest of us.
Yeah.
So, you know, this was a disappointing season in Washington when you put all your eggs in one basket and none of them hatched. This is the scenario that they had.
Well, I think that's the scenario. They were all putting their eggs in one basket, and obviously Cousins wasn't worth that basket, Big C. The New York Jets, the Jets 30, the Buffalo Bills 10. Buffalo started so promising this year, but they lost both offensive and defensive coordinators, well, the coach and the defensive coordinator, Big C, and they even wanted to bench their, I think they should start Tyrod Taylor as he should be their franchise quarterback. A lot of things went wrong in Buffalo, Big C. The Jets 30-10, but they're keeping Coach Bowles around. I think that's a good decision. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, you know, Bowles needs another chance. There was a lot of problems in New York that he didn't have control of. You know, quarterback holding out, players getting hurt, you know, and he lost Decker when he got injured, the running back that they signed from Chicago, the free agent.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get everything unwrapped this year like they did last year. You know, that's when they tank at the start of the season. But when you look at Buffalo on the flip side, I mean, they got rid of everybody. They got an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach, got rid of his spot. So this is a team, what are they looking for? What are they trying to accomplish? You know, Tyrod Taylor really didn't have that bad of a season when you look across the table at other quarterbacks in the NFL. But you bench him and you bring in a backup quarterback who hasn't played all year. What do you expect gotten rid of your head coach. You know,
Yeah.
the motivation of the players just was not there because when you look how easily the Jets handled the Bills in this game, Charlton, it was a travesty, and you could tell that from the leadership perspective, it just wasn't there from the sideline.
Well, Big C, a lot happens at the end of a season, and I kind of feel for Chip Kelly in a sense because I felt that his job was lost because of another guy who lost his job also. You look at San Francisco, the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC West with a 25-23 victory over San Francisco at Levi Stadium, and after the game, they decided to let go of Chip Kelly. Before the game, they decided to let go of the GM, Trent Baalke. I think the 49ers at least can start rebuilding and do things the right way, but they need more time. But just your thoughts on Seattle getting a very close win over San Francisco. Now they're getting ready to have a home game in the playoffs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, the situation in San Francisco, Chip Kelly was he was coaching to lose his job from day one of the season.
Yeah.
When he decided not to start his best quarterback and start the guy that the league with.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody's known that Blaine Gabbert couldn't play. Even the San Francisco media knew he couldn't play, but they just hated Kaepernick so much that they didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes they need to be honest with, you know, the reason why they make the statements that they make. You know, I think everybody would be better off in that scenario, Charlton.
Yeah.
But, you know, Chip Kelly, he had no desire to keep his job in San Francisco, just like he had no desire to keep his job in Philadelphia. You know, he's more suited for the college game than he is the pro game because dealing with grown men is not like threatening young boys, okay?
Yeah.
It's a different neighborhood. And Baalke, you know, he's a guy that dismantled everything that the San Francisco 49ers stood for 3 years ago. You know, he went out there with a razor blade and just cut everything loose. When you look at the defense, there's nobody on the defense that was there other than Brooks.
Yeah.
You know, and the whole Super Bowl there. So 10 of the 11 starters from the previous Super Bowl that you had are gone in 3 years. You know, the offense. How many starters are left there? 2. That's it. 2 starters.
Yeah.
From the previous Super Bowl. So you have no remnants of the team that you had 3 years ago. That comes from management. Not just a coach, but from management, Charlton. When you feel the need not to have these players around because you don't like winning, you should have been fired before you even took the job.
I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And they're one of the rare organizations. Again, they have 5 Super Bowl championships. They've been to 6 Super Bowls. They're 5-1. They're the rare organization that has the last quarterback that took them to a Super Bowl, and they're trying to trade him and keep guys that don't win at all, Big C. And so for whatever happened to let that happen, I just think they can start all over again. But I just hope they get things going in the right direction because the NFL is better when the 49ers are on top, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it is, Charlton. When you have West Coast teams that are relevant in the playoffs, you think of the rivalry that the Seahawks and the 49ers had put together just a short 3 years ago, Charlton.
Yeah.
How intense it was. And people that rivalry would last for a long time with 2 young and up-and-coming quarterbacks, Charlton. You had talented defenses on both sides of the field. Offensive lines were young and strong, Charlton. But the only thing that stayed intact was Seattle, Charlton. When you look at their defense, it's still intact.
Yeah.
From that game of 3 years ago. And when you look at the 49ers, you don't recognize anybody out there. It's like, who's who?
Yeah.
You know, that's what their team is. And even the offense. Yeah, Seattle has made a couple changes on offense, but the nucleus of their offense, they didn't mess with Russell Wilson. All they did was extend his quarterback and give him some help. San Francisco, they extended Colin Kaepernick's quarterback, but took away all the help.
Yeah.
So what can you expect for his performance? Let's blame it on him. It's his fault that the guys that he's playing with that are a bunch of cheerleaders can't play football.
Well, don't you think it's ironic, no matter what happens to the 49ers in the offseason, the one guy that would not stand up for his quarterback, the last quarterback to take them to the Super Bowl, he helped throw him under the bus, and now he's gone, Big C. Don't you think that's a little bit ironic? The guy that was trying to not even put the fire out when people were blasting his quarterback never came out and stood up for him. Coach Chip Kelly did. He's gone too, unfortunately. But I think it's a little bit of poetic justice when Baalke never stood up for Kaepernick, saying that Black Lives Matter in an area where they have most of the other guys on their team are black, and now he's gone from the organization. Looking at another great organization, Big C, that started out great, the Minnesota Vikings 38, the Chicago Bears 10, and that game was played in Minnesota in front of 66,000 fans at the new stadium. Now, no Adrian Peterson, to help out for the Minnesota Vikings. I know they were counting on that. Also, no Teddy Bridgewater. Your thoughts on Minnesota? How can they turn things around with that great defense?
Well, Minnesota's going to have to do some retooling on offense. Sam Bradford did set an NFL percentage passing record in that game, just under 72% for the season, and so he kept that intact. That was the one promising thing that came out of that. But Minnesota just had no running game. Adrian Peterson, will he be back with the Vikings next year? He's due to make $18 million. They're not going to pay a running back $18 million who's over 30 years old. So if he wants to stay with the Minnesota Vikings, he's going to have to give back about $12 million to stay with that team, restructuring his contract, Johnson. But this is a team that they've had some struggles on the offensive line. It wasn't just, being without Adrian Peterson. When you can't block, that's going to create a problem for your running game, even though they didn't have a solid running game. The defense, I don't care how good your defense is, Charlton. If they're playing the majority of the game, they're not going to be a great defense. We saw that with Philadelphia. The way they started out the season, they were the number one ranked defense in the NFL the first 4 weeks of the season, and they finished it in the 20s. So, when you spend too much time on the field, your greatness wanes. And so the Vikings, if Bridgewater can come back from that knee injury, they have an outstanding receiving core.
Yeah.
And if Adrian Peterson can come back and give them any type of support on the ground, they'll be okay offensively next year.
Big C, the Pittsburgh Steelers 27, the Cleveland Browns 24, and I think Coach Tomlin is more than just a motivator. The Steelers won the division again, and you look at the great Ben Roethlisberger. They had a great game plan going yesterday. Cleveland played very hard at Pittsburgh. They had a good chance to win that game in front of 55,000 at Heinz Field, but overall the Steelers had 21 first downs, and Cleveland had 27, yet the Steelers were able to pull out that win in the end. Is Mike Tomlin now, as I know he won the division, but is he still a good motivator in the eyes of Terry Bradshaw, Big C?
But you can smell shade, now Terry Bradshaw's still trying to put that word. But, Mike Tomlin, he's like, Marvin Lewis, he wins, Johnson. Yeah. And he has a resume of winning, and you think about it, Johnson. The only coaches in the NFL that get knocked for winning are the African-American coaches. I kind of wonder about that, and I'm trying to understand why that happens. Mike Tomlin and Marvin Lewis, all they've done is they've played each other for a decade in the same division, and they've both been winning, Johnson. They've both made the playoffs consistently.
Yeah.
But no other coach has come under the fire that they have come under, Johnson. Mike Tomlin, people have to question, what has he done wrong in Pittsburgh? Terry Bradshaw, you were surrounded. You're a Hall of Fame quarterback. We got to give you kudos for that.
Yeah.
But you're also surrounded by a lot of Hall of Famers, both wide receivers, running back, a couple of offensive linemen, Johnson, are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Across the defense. Half of those guys on the defense, all in the Hall of Fame. They had the greatest team in the 70s in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, nobody's going to take that away from the Steelers. But it was the Steelers, Johnson. Think about it. The Steelers made it to the Super Bowl when he wasn't even the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
So was it Terry Bradshaw being that great, or was it the organization that damn good? You had. Yes, he won the Super Bowl, but he did not win the regular season with the Steelers. Joe Gillen did.
Yeah.
So, he can't take credit for all the success that the Steelers had. Mike Tomlin's not trying to take all the success with the Steelers under his tenure.
Yeah.
He spreads it around, lets his players do it. Ben Roethlisberger's been his quarterback. He's never knocked Ben Roethlisberger. Guy's gone to 3 Super Bowls. Nobody said anything negative about Ben. To knock Tomlin, you have to knock Ben. They want, they're synonymous with each other.
Yeah.
And so if Bradshaw's going to get on Tomlin, he has to get on Roethlisberger, saying he's not that good of a quarterback.
Well, that's a very good point, Big C. Also, speaking of quarterbacks, Kansas City 37, the Chargers 27, may be the last game in San Diego for the Chargers. I really feel for that organization. It's such a gorgeous place to play a football game, and the environment down in San Diego, they've always supported the Chargers. 54,000 in the house yesterday, Big C, and you look at the Kansas City Chiefs 37-27 over the Chargers, and they actually win the AFC West, and it took them the last game of the regular season to do it. But Kansas City Chiefs, congratulations, AFC West champions. Your thoughts on the game, Big C?
Well, in Kansas City, Johnson, we talked a couple of weeks ago when the Raiders went into Kansas City on that frigid night and came out defeated, Johnson, and I felt that Kansas City had the momentum to win the division at that point, and they've proven it, Johnson. When you look at this offense in Kansas City, they're well-rounded. You know, you look at the heel, the little scat back receiver, running back, kick returner that they have.
Oh, yeah.
Difference maker in the game, Charlton, and that's what nobody's had an answer for. You know, Alex Smith does yeoman work when he goes out there, game in, game out. He's not going to be a highlight reel, Charlton. He's just going to win. And the defense has played well enough in Kansas City, Charlton, to make the big plays when needed to be the difference in the ball games. Yes, San Diego scored a lot of points, but when the need arose, Kansas City was able to make the stops and win the division.
Well, you look at what they've done all over this year and last year. If it were not for New England and Denver and even Carolina last year, I think Kansas City has won as many games as any team in the NFL over the past 2 seasons, Big C. So congratulations for the Chiefs winning the AFC West, Big C. Also, the Philadelphia Eagles 27-13 over the Cowboys. And everybody in the media and down in Dallas, they finally got what they wanted. They wanted to see the great Tony Romo play. He actually threw a touchdown in the game. But let me just put something by you, Big C. The Dallas Cowboys lost that game. And they lost by, if my math is right, they lost by 14 points, Big C. The prior 2 losses came to the New York Giants by combined 4 points. And I think because they did not keep Prescott in there and play him the entire game the same way New England played Tom Brady against Miami, I think that may end up costing Dallas the chance to go to the Super Bowl. And I say it this way, that team did not look like the Dallas Cowboys that we saw win the East, Big C. And of course they got Tony Romo some playing time, but they lost. And at the same time, they may have also lost the momentum that New England has going into the playoffs. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Charlton, the Dallas Cowboys made everybody in the national media happy, okay? They let Tony Romo play. They lost the game. They lost their momentum. They lost their chance to go to the Super Bowl because they wanted Tony Romo to play so badly. And what's happened now is that they've destroyed the continuity of the Dallas Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott sit on the bench. Dak Prescott sit on the bench. You had all these guys out there in the lineup that had no idea what was going on. Derek McFadden looked scared as a running back. Tony Romo, yes, he threw a touchdown, okay? But let's look at it from this perspective, Charles. Everybody talks about Tony Romo, how great he is. What quarterback on the Dallas roster has won the most playoff games? Mark Sanchez, okay?
Yeah.
He's won more playoff games than Tony Romo ever has. He just hasn't had the chance to play in Dallas. And Tony Romo has had a decade to prove that he cannot win. But, you know, you destroy a team just for the mere fact, to get Romo out there and everybody, now he's playoff ready. If they need him in the playoffs, he's going to be ready to play. Wow, the only reason you need him in the playoffs is because you messed up.
Yeah.
You destroyed what you had. I didn't see New England trying to sit down Tom Brady.
No.
You know, he was playing. I didn't see Kansas City trying to sit down Alex Smith.
No.
He was playing. Or any other team that was in the playoffs. But, you know, Atlanta didn't sit down Matt Ryan until they got the division sold up. You know, only the Dallas Cowboys and only the media wanted the Dallas Cowboys to sit down their rookie black quarterbacks. One of the other things, Charles, they did not want him to set a team win record.
I agree.
They had the playoffs, but if he had won this game, that's 14 wins, the most ever in Dallas Cowboys history.
Yeah.
That was another thing they didn't want to see. So there was a lot of layers of what, you know, what was happening in this game. It was, no, it's not that. No, the game is that damn deep because all of the things that apply in that, you know, as far as bonus money, you know, records, something that will never be taken away from you. You're the winningest quarterback in a single season in Cowboy history.
Yeah.
That won't be replaced. And your picture will always be there on America's team, the black quarterback. So there was a lot of things that, you know, Dallas did intentionally in this game. And number one was to lose. That was an intentional act on Dallas, was to lose and to rob Dak Prescott of making history.
Well, Big C, I think a lot of people might think we're being cynical, but I think Dallas lost the Super Bowl yesterday in Philadelphia. They had a total of 195 total yards, period. 195 net yards. That's not how you tune up going into a playoff game. Let's contrast them with the team that everyone thought they were competing against to win the Super Bowl. That's the New England Patriots, where the team in New England beat a playoff team. They rolled it up on a playoff team in Miami 35-14. The great Tom Brady did not take his foot off the pedal, and they go on to Miami with the 66,000 fans, and they blow out the Dolphins 35-14, and they did not take
their foot off the pedal the way the Dallas Cowboys did, who hasn't been to a Super Bowl since 95, Big C, or 96, I believe. And I think that's going to cost Dallas in the playoffs. Your thoughts on the great New England Patriots and the great Tom Brady not taking his foot off the pedal, Big C?
Well, Charles, winners are winners, and they stay consistent winners because they do the same thing over and over. They don't get caught up in the media, and that's one of the reasons why Bill Belichick is so sure with the media. I'm here to coach. I'm not here to be an interviewer for you. I'm going to give you the basics, and that's it. But my players are going to go out and play. I saw LeGarrette Blount, the touchdown leader there, scores 18 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah.
He wasn't sitting on the bench like an Ezekiel Elliott. Tom Brady was throwing the ball in the fourth quarter, Johnson, throwing touchdowns.
Yeah.
He wasn't sitting on the bench like a Dak Prescott. And let me put it to you this way, Johnson. Let's talk about NFL MVP candidates, okay?
Yeah.
You think about it. In each division, the American Conference and the National Conference, the top two MVP candidates both wore number 4, Johnson.
Yeah.
Derek Carr and Dak Prescott. What happened when both of those players didn't play the final game of the season?
They lost, Big C.
If you want to talk about an MVP candidate and what a player means to a team as far as wins and losses, look at the two number 4 quarterbacks in both conferences that did not play the final game of the season, and look at the offensive productivity, Charles, of both of their teams.
Yeah, and I agree, Big C. It's something about momentum, and once you kill momentum, it's hard to always get it back. And unfortunately, what it looked like to me yesterday was you have a great owner in Jerry Jones, right? No one can knock the fact that he has won some Super Bowls, even though it was under Jimmy Johnson and he even brought in Barry Switzer, but it was the players that did it. And so to sit these players down that are young players that are at the top of the business, at the top of the heat, he did two things. He cost his running back, who they had the chance to break Eric Dickerson's record, Ezekiel Elliott. He didn't do that. And also, he took Prescott and made sure that he killed the momentum. It's almost like he felt guilty for leaving the old girlfriend behind, so he introduced the old girlfriend to his wife. As I hoping they're going to get together and make a good team, Big C. But I think the chemistry's gone yesterday. What I also saw was that the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, they didn't rest Aaron Rodgers either. He was still throwing the ball, and they have momentum. That chemistry that you need to win. I would be so surprised if Dallas gets even to the NFC Championship game. It's just a weird thing, momentum. When you lose it sometimes, it doesn't always come back. Another great game, Big C. I just want to bring this up too, because the quarterbacks are always considered, great quarterbacks. The Indianapolis Colts 34, the Jaguars 20, Andrew Luck $144 million, and the good old boys Bortles down in, he didn't play down in for Jacksonville. But Andrew Luck, again, not going to the playoffs, $144 million. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is what the media does. They label everybody great quarterbacks. But these guys are franchise players, a once-in-a-lifetime quarterback. If Andrew Luck is once in a lifetime, then, our lifetime is over.
Yeah.
Because he's shown the lack of inconsistency that he has, Charlton. They keep blaming everybody around him. But when you make that much money and you're that good and you're that cerebral, you make things happen on your own, okay, Johnson?
Yeah.
Dak Prescott, when you look at what he did, he equaled Ben Roethlisberger as far as rookie wins.
Oh, did Big Ben Roethlisberger sit yesterday at Big C?
No, he didn't sit, Johnson. He didn't sit. He played. But, when you look at Andrew Luck, this guy, has not lived up to his potential, and the team is going to be even worse. They're losing their best pass rusher. They're going to lose some other players.
Wait, hold on, Big C. Are you saying that Andrew Luck is not going to go to the organization and say, let's redo my contract so we can build up an offensive line? You don't think he's going to do that, Big C?
Well, I don't think he'll go ask him, Charlton, to shave $40 million off of his guaranteed money, to let him build him an offensive line and get him a young running back and another wide receiver.
So, Big C, why did, and you look at New England, why did Tom Brady restructure his contract to have a better team, and Andrew Luck won't do it, Big C?
Well, Tom Brady restructured his contract because he's called a team player and a guy who wants to win Super Bowls, Charlton. That's the only selfish reason why Tom Brady restructured his contract, because he knew the needs of the team outweighed the financial needs of him, because he's okay. He's made enough money to survive over the rest of his life, Charlton. but he wants to win a couple more Super Bowls. He wants to walk away from this game knowing that he set the table and the bar so high that no other individual quarterback can do that. But the only way to do that, Charlton, is by having a team around him that, they can pay, they can protect him and support him. And so Tom Brady is willing to take less. Of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Tom Brady is the least paid of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Charlton, a mere $14 million. And we say a mere $14 million. A lot of people like to make that.
Yeah.
But when you think about that, Charlton, that's $10 to $12 million a year less than the top quarterbacks financially above him. There's a half a dozen quarterbacks, Charlton, that make more a year than Tom Brady. And half of those have never seen a Super Bowl other than on TV.
Wow, that's incredible, Big C. I want to say this segment is also sponsored by One Life America Life Insurance. We're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. We're also looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers because we want to put more people back to work. Also, CYNN Entertainment and Beneath His Wings Foundation.org. And Cynthia Evans, she's the best when it comes to promotions in Northern California. Big C, another great team. I want to ask you if they rested their starting quarterback. The Atlanta Falcons were the 38-32 win over New Orleans Saints, and the Falcons are the number 2 seed in the NFC. Did they rest Matt Ryan yesterday, Big C?
Well, the last I checked, Johnson, I think Matt Ryan threw for 344 yards and 3 touchdowns. They did rest him. I take that back. They did rest him in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
He sat down in the fourth quarter after he had amassed 344 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he did take a quarter off of the game, Johnson. It wasn't a situation where he took the whole game off. They allowed him to get the team out to a sufficient enough lead to hold on against Drew Brees and the Saints. They didn't let him go out there and take one snap, Johnson, and sit him down. But, this is the difference of an organization wanting to have momentum. But when we talk about momentum goes to Green Bay, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's where the Super Bowl is going to have to go to. To get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to beat the Green Bay Packers.
I agree.
And I don't see anybody playing right now that can do this, Charlton. I honestly don't.
No, I agree with you 100%, Big C. And again, Eric McCarthy, he's been there before. I think Jerry Jones, obviously they're going to throw the coach under the bus if this happens. And I hope that Dallas can get to the Super Bowl because I would love to see, 2 dominant African-American players get there. But I thought they were sabotaged yesterday by their organization. They would rather not have the chance to have Tony Romo in the Super Bowl if they're going to have 2 black guys that are leading it. It's just weird to say that, but it just doesn't seem right. They're the only team that rested their dominant players that are up for the MVP in the final week of the season. Even Seattle, they did. Pete Carroll did not rest Russell Wilson in San Francisco, a game that they easily, could have won because he did not rest him. Another game I want to ask you, and you just brought it up: the Green Bay Packers 31, the Lions 24, and the Packers win that division. But I think you're right. Discount double check. Not only did they not rest him, Big C, he even jumped into he did the Lambeau leap. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, going into that game, both the Lions and the Packers knew they were in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So if there was ever a reason to rest your quarterback, that would have been the reason. Sit down Aaron Rodgers, sit down Matthew Stafford. Especially since Stafford has had the bad hand, Charlton.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, is throwing the ball, so many times during the season. But, no coach, neither one of the coaches, neither one of the teams had consideration of that. Only the Dallas Cowboys to make the national media happy to sit the black guy down. The white guys played, Charlton. All these guys who were their team leaders, who took their teams to winning records to get playoff berths, Charlton, they all started. And across the board, Charlton, across the league. But, only the Dallas Cowboys sit there starting quarterback. A very perplexing move, but not to the national media because this is what they've been singing all year long. Tony Romo got to play. Tony Romo got to play. You can't let Dak Prescott take the Cowboys to the Super Bowl. That's actually been the cry all year, Charlton. It's not about him being an MVP, not about him being Rookie of the Year. It's that you can't let him take the Cowboys to the Super Bowl. You gotta find a reason to let Tony Romo be the guy to get them to the Super Bowl. He's done a great job, but we don't want him as the face of the franchise winning a Super Bowl as a rookie, an unprecedented feat in the NFL, and especially in Dallas.
Ironically, when it came to MVP voting, there's some national pundits that have Tom Brady number 1. They have Matt Ryan number 2. They have Aaron Rodgers number 3. And Dak Prescott has a better record than all of them. Okay, that's just weird to me, Big C, but that's the way the media goes. And Jerry Jones, he's probably going to go watch the Super Bowl too, but I think it's going to be, he's going to watch that Super Bowl at Tony Romo's house, Big C. The final two games, the Texans and the Titans 24, the Texans 17. The great Brock Osweiler played again, Big C. And I know we talk about Brock Osweiler a lot because they gave him so much money just to come down to Houston and play in that game, Big C. But when I look at passing and I look at Osweiler, he was 21 of 40, 253 yards, and they lost that game. He threw the ball a lot, but he just does not have command of that offense, Big C. And the Titans 24, the Texans 17. The Texans, ironically, will host the Oakland Raiders in the playoff wildcard game. Your thoughts?
You think about Brock Osweiler. We talked about Tom Brady a minute ago, Charlton. Brock Osweiler makes $3.5 more million this year than what Tom Brady does, okay?
Wow.
$3.5 more million this season than what Tom Brady does, guaranteed money. So when you talk about a quarterback and lack of productivity, that's Brock Osweiler. He's a guy who stands 6'6", 6'7", Charlton, and throws the ball sidearm. He throws his sidearm at about 5'5".
Yeah.
At about 5'7". That's where he's throwing the football. So he's throwing it right into the chest and the arms of defensive linemen half the time, Charlton. He is so scared and nervous back in the pocket to make that kind of money and not be willing to take a hit. That's the thing when you question the heart of a football player. And no one gave, Brock Osweiler physical to see if he had a pulse, prior to signing.
Yeah.
He definitely don't have a heartbeat. He's like that scared. This is what the Houston is stuck with. I mean, Savage had the concussion. You bring Osweiler in. You think that he'd be happy to get back in the lineup. Now you see why Denver, when they benched him last year, they didn't think about bringing him back in the lineup because they knew that his time had run out, that there was nothing left in the tank. And Houston saw that firsthand yesterday, Charlton, on Saturday.
Well, Big C, the last NFL game we'll cover, and I'm just so excited about the playoffs starting up. We have the Arizona Cardinals, and they're on the road at the Los Angeles Rams, and that's a game that at the Coliseum of Los Angeles, on paper they said over 80,000 showed up at the Coliseum, but I don't think we had 80,000. But what I do know for sure is when I look at the passing game, you had the quarterback Jared Goff, 13 of 20, 120 yards, Big C, as the first round pick, the very first pick overall in the NFL draft last year. And I think about all the national pundits that said he was the next Joe Montana coming. And I wish the man success, but I never saw it. And now the national media, they're seeing the same thing that we saw last year, Big C, when we said that he would not be the number one pick or the number one athlete in the NFL, Big C. Your thoughts on the Cardinals blowing out the Rams again, Big C?
Well, Charlton, after a season-long frustration with the Rams offense, people are sitting there saying, well, were we right or were we wrong? You were wrong, and you knew you were wrong, but you guys don't understand scouting. You don't understand talent. You sit there, and you're so willing to listen to what somebody else says about this guy is great. All you have to do is look at his college record.
14 and 26. 14 and 26.
When was the last time a quarterback has won 14 games in 3 years? They've been considered great.
Well, that was Mel Kiper. That was Mel Kiper and Top Mache that was selling everybody a bill of goods, and the Rams bought it, Big C, for some reason.
Charlton, how many games has Alabama won this year? Okay.
Well, that's a good point, Big C.
Okay, Alabama's won 14 games this year, huh?
Yeah.
14. With a rookie quarterback, keep him hurt. All right.
Yeah.
Rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
14 games, and when you look at his offensive productivity, Charlton, we had Goff pass for 4,600 yards at his junior camp in his final season. Good to have that in dual offense, in rushing and passing as a true freshman in Alabama.
Yeah.
So is he not the best player in the country? No, he's not. Not even close. So he technically, based on Goff numbers, he should be the number one draft pick in the NFL. But the scouts were never looking at because he's a black young quarterback.
Yeah.
He's never been good. Deshaun Watson's better than Goff ever has been. This year alone, Charlton, he's won 13 games. He won 13 games last year.
Yeah.
Okay? He's won 26 games in the last 2 years in college that he's played. 26 games. Jared Goff won how many?
14.
In 3 years?
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson's won 26 in 2.
Yeah.
And had numbers equal to what Goff had, but people are saying he may not even get the one round draft pick.
Yeah. Well, Big C.
Look how far people fall based on color.
Yeah.
All right? They said he's not a franchise quarterback, but Goff and Winston are. I would trade either one of them to take Watson in a heartbeat. But, it's like looking at Oswald, $17.5 million. $4 more million for what Tom Brady's paid. Okay?
Yeah.
Tom Brady will end up in the Super Bowl. I was in the Super Bowl last year collecting splitters and using an ink pen.
Well, Big C, that's a very good point. I want to say this final concept is brought to you by the new program that we have for athletic insurance offered through Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team or even a Pop Warner team, collegiate team, etc., all over the world, we can offer you athletic insurance and also sponsor and also offer insurance for covering your athletic events. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports. Also, Big C, I just want to say there's so much looking forward to coming up in 2017, but I want you to close out on the iHeartRadio network every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Charlton and Big C Sports. What are you most looking forward to as we come up on this new national championship setup for 2017 with Alabama changing their offensive coordinator the week before the kickoff, and what you think is going to impact the game? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I look at the changing of offensive coordinators in Alabama just like I look at the changing of quarterbacks in Dallas. Is that the momentum that you had, the relationships and continuity that you have built, you have altered that. And can you regain that momentum from that? I don't think so. I don't see Sarkisian being the same mind that a Kiffin was. Kiffin developed those players on the offense for Alabama. Yes, Saban is the defensive coordinator, but without an offense, your great defense still has to spend time on the field. Sarkisian, we don't know if he's exercised all the demons. Is he's ready for a stage this big?
Yeah.
That's a big question mark. He's never been in this place before. Kiffin's been there before, but the ego of Saban is bigger than anybody else in college football, just like the ego of Jones is bigger than anybody in the NFL.
Yeah.
So you get two similar organizations, having the same similar past. I think Clemson will win the national championship this year. They will be thrown the champion in Alabama. I think the Dallas Cowboys will be eliminated in the first round of the playoffs because they don't have the momentum. They'll get the first round bye, but in their first playoff game, I don't think they have the answer to kickstart that offense after being on hiatus for basically 3 weeks, Charlton. So it's going to be a tough road. So I'm looking forward to the games coming up this weekend. First round of the playoffs, I think we'll have an upset or two. But, just an exciting time. I'm looking forward to the national championship game.
Well, Big C, I love coming to the world with Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. Charlton and Big C Sports, we appreciate so much being able to come on and talk to everybody that loves sports. And as we always said last year, we're going to say it again. There's never any excuse for domestic violence. No woman should ever have to go through that garbage on her own. If you see anyone in trouble, just call 911. And every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide, follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. And as we tell you for every program, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.